January 2001. The place is Parris Island, South Carolina, United States Marine Corps Recruit Depot. It was a couple days before Marine graduation, on a day they called Family Day, where you got to bring your families onto the base and show them all the crazy things you did to become a United States Marine. At the time, I was dating a young woman, and I invited her onto base, and she brought this little yellow manila envelope with her. I took that manila envelope and I marched straight up to my senior drill instructor and said, "Senior drill instructor, this Marine would like to speak to you, sir." He was a short man. He had these piercing eyes, one of those smoky covers that covered them, braces, so every time he yelled, he spit. He looked down at me and he said, "What?" "This Marine would like to show you something, sir." And I handed him the manila envelope. He opened it up. There were a bunch of photos inside. He pulled the largest one out, which was a large 8x10 photograph of me in tights, a tunic, partnering this beautiful ballerina. We were doing a photo shoot for Sleeping Beauty. We were dancing in it. He took one look at that photograph, started to shake his head and said, "Oh, Baca, I knew there was something weird about you." You see, I was a classical ballet dancer before I joined the United States Marine Corps. I joined the Marine Corps because I felt this drive to help other people and to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. I was trained as a Marine, and in 2005, my platoon was sent to Fallujah, Iraq, in the middle of the Iraq War. Our job was to go through villages with 3 Humvees full of weapons, primarily the M2 fully automatic machine gun and the Mark 19 fully automatic grenade launcher, looking and hunting insurgents. While we were there, we developed this violent and aggressive posture so that people wouldn't want to attack us or mess with us. We found out really quickly that that posture was detrimental to our mission. And in the last 2 months, we transitioned to more humanitarian missions, including going into the local school in the village and handing out school supplies and taking food and water to the locals when we went out on patrol. It was those missions that caused me coming back home to look for a greater purpose. But I didn't do that right away. I did what most people do when they come back from war. I got a regular job. I bought a condo. I settled down with my partner. But that violent and aggressive posture I told you about didn't leave. It was still there. And for the first time in my life, I had somebody sit me down and say, "People are afraid of you." That was my wife. And she suggested that I go back to art as a way to connect with those around me and to heal. I started choreographing, and then I started choreographing things about the war that I was aching to investigate, that I was aching to talk about. This process led me to do workshops with veterans, and in 2012, with children in Iraq that had been affected by the war. For many years, I was doing this creative effort to expose the effects of war through the art of dance. And I was finding that purpose that I had discovered in Iraq as a Marine. That path went awry a bit when I had an opportunity to become an artistic director of a conservatory, and I was teaching students, and I was choreographing things like the Nutcracker and Sleeping Beauty myself. And a mentor sat me down and said, "Roman, you are developing this calling, if you will, as a Marine who was choreographing. And now you're going down this path of an artistic director who used to be a Marine. He challenged me to take a very good look at both of those scenarios and decide which one was most important to me. So I did. And then I had a phone call from this place called The Maltings, a small theater in Berwick-upon-Tweed. A lot of you know where that is. I didn't. Northumberland, the United Kingdom. It's up there by Scotland. They told me about all of this stuff happening in the UK around the military experience and the veteran experience, and even individuals that had stepped away from the war and emigrated to the UK from Iraq. They were looking at the connection between The Rite of Spring, Igor Stravinsky's composition that was choreographed by Nijinsky right before World War I, and they wanted a response. They wanted someone to choreograph a response. So they reached out to me. I started developing my Fulbright application around that idea. And then it got bigger in that it started to include learning about veterans and the military here in the UK. But the one component was missing was an opportunity to look at my artistic practice, at what I was doing and who I was as an artist. And then I found Trinity Laban. And I met with my program director, Tony Thatcher, who's up in the top row, in New York City to learn about the program here, the MFA and the MA in choreography. I think Tony was generous enough to sit and talk with me for about an hour about what is done here at Trinity Laban in terms of choreography. After that conversation, I knew I had to come here. And I'm going to fast forward a bit. 4 months after coming here, I know that I made the right choice, and I feel incredibly grateful and privileged to be a part of the Trinity Laban family. What you've just seen are the efforts of my first module, Examining Practice. You might not know that before coming to Trinity Laban, I was working completely differently than you see now. The minute I got here, working with Tony Thatcher, the rest of the faculty, and with my fellow MFAs and MAs, I've been challenged to change how I work. So a little bit about this work. This work is looking specifically at identity and personal experience, developed through the dancers themselves, looking at their lives and how they've traveled through this world. We introduced in the middle an intervention, military training techniques taken from not only my own experiences, those of my comrades and UK military members that I've met here. And then we presented that again to see if the change is visible. This process has not only changed the way I work, but has completely changed the way I research and the way I think. When I was challenged to think about what's next, I was talking to a colleague of mine, and she reminded me, it's not necessarily about where you're going next, but how you're going there. And so I feel confident that after my MFA is done, I'll be headed forward with new tools with which to approach choreography, research, and the creative process. Thank you.